Morning, Richter.
Hello YouTube, and welcome to another episode of Review the Right Thing. I'm going to be talking to you about one of my favorite sci-fi movies, Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger. We're going to be doing a 4K Blu-ray review of this today. As I said, Total Recall stars Arnold Schwarzenegger, directed by Paul Verhoeven after his success with RoboCop, based off of the book by Philip K. Dick called We Can Remember It For You Wholesale. And the screenplay was done by Dan O'Bannon after Alien and Ronald Shusett. The overall picture quality in this movie is pretty pleasing, with some improvements in skin tone and clothing textures. Textures in the clothing look more natural, and the differences between different clothings are much more noticeable. Set pieces and effects come across really good, sometimes if not a little bit cheap, but that's part of the nostalgia of just the age of the movie and what they had to work with at the time, the building of everything they wanted the audience to see, because back then you had to create a lot of that stuff. It was very early CGI, so they didn't have much of that technology going on, so it was dependent on miniatures and makeup and prosthetics and stuff. All that stuff looks really great on the 4K picture. Drawbacks, I just feel like, are in the scenes where anything takes place in front of a green screen. I noticed when I popped in the old Blu-ray, these problems were about the same on there too. But there's like a haloing effect that goes around the characters that kind of just looks a little bit funny, and once you kind of see it, you can't really unsee it. It doesn't really take away from any part of the film, but you just kind of notice it during the scenes where they're obviously shooting in front of a green screen. Any of the places where they actually had built sets and done stuff like that, picture looks great, sets look great. I know this was 1990 and they were really trying to do what they could with what they had. It's a huge budget, but some of that just didn't translate well to the 4K, same as the Blu-ray. Maybe that's just because that's the best we'll get. Who knows, but maybe another company, could take a stab at it one day and maybe offer up something a little bit different where they maybe cut that a little bit. I don't want to see any edge enhancement or anything like that, but it'd be nice to kind of get rid of that kind of haloing effect that does kind of seem weird. But overall, at this price point, I'm not complaining. It's only like $17. The audio on the disc is a 4K, or on the 4K disc is a Dolby Atmos track. Sounds pretty awesome from what I can tell. I'm just running it on an older Samsung soundbar that has a subwoofer as well, so I do get that low punch. But I can't argue that I would probably have a much nicer sound if I had a setup that I could take advantage of that Atmos track. Maybe one day when I don't have anything to buy, I'll be able to take advantage of that. However, that is unlikely because I am always finding something. There's also an English 2.0 track, and between going back and forth between the tracks during the scene where Quaid and Molina are about to be brainwashed, Quaid will return as Hauser, Molina will now be this obedient housewife. But during that scene, didn't really notice much difference between the tracks as far as dialogue is concerned. In the 2.0 English track, the orchestral parts sound a little bit more bright in the mix, a little bit more forward. Nothing that took away from any of the dialogue or was overbearing to the dialogue. It actually was mixed very nicely. But I noticed in the Atmos track, it was a lot more punchy. The explosions, the bass, and the orchestral movements was a little bit more grandiose and had more oomph behind it. So at the end of the day, I think it's more of just a personal preference. You can always switch back and forth between the two. But the Atmos track, to me, I think sounded a little bit nicer. Also included as far as the audio tracks are a French 5.1 track and a Spanish 2.0 track, obviously neither of which I had the advantage of checking out. Features on the commentary, or on the 4K disc, would be a commentary with Arnold Schwarzenegger and director Paul Verhoeven. There's also a 59-minute documentary on the Kuroko company that kind of changed a little bit of how Hollywood made their movies. They were a company started by two guys. They basically outsourced a lot of their stuff overseas, were able to make movies on the cheap, but they became the A of the B action movie. They were just so well known, they were so great to work with, and it was a really awesome documentary. Next feature on the 4K disc was Scoring Total Recall, which was a 21-minute featurette talking about how they were able to acquire Jerry Goldsmith, him being such a big person in the industry at that time. Paul Verhoeven, after just having success from RoboCop, was able to basically afford him, and this is just kind of a little featurette talking about that, which was really cool. Next is a small little featurette called Dreamers Within the Dream, which is basically just an a little featurette about the concept art, the original stages of the Total Recall movie, from basically the screenplay dropping onto somebody's desk to originally who they were going to have direct the movie, and just a lot of the things that went into basically pre-production until this movie actually was brought to us. And then also included on that 4K disc is a trailer for the film. Also in this set are 2 Blu-ray discs, one for the film, one for some extra special features. On the first Blu-ray disc is just the film. It does have the same special features as the 4K disc, but they did not include the Kuroko documentary. On Blu-ray disc 2, however, with all the special features, they did include the Kuroko documentary. I'm guessing it was just a space thing on the Blu-ray disc itself. Next, on the Blu-ray special features disc, there is a featurette about the special effects of Total Recall. It's a little 23-minute thing. And it basically talks about the miniatures that were involved in creating the landscape, the company that did that, because it was on such a large scale. They couldn't do it at the studios. And then also the company that handled the CGI during the X-ray scene when Arnold was going through the train station. So that was kind of like earlier CGI, and it was kind of just talking to them about that, which was really interesting. Next, there's a small little making of 8-minute featurette that really didn't talk about a whole lot. It was mostly just kind of stock footage from the film, and more of just kind of what they had talked about in some of the other featurettes as far as like its conception and kind of how it was developed, different hands that it went through, talking to different cast and crew. It was pretty cool. And then last on that disc was Imagining Total Recall, which was basically a 31-minute featurette, just kind of talking about more concept art, how it went from being the Philip K. Dick novel that it was to then, adapted into a screenplay, and then obviously then brought to film. So yeah, overall I'm pretty happy with this 4K release. It's packed with a bunch of features which I really like, more so than what were on my original Blu-ray release. I have the Mondo Steelbook, so I will be holding on to that because I just collect the Mondo Steelbooks. But otherwise, I'm pretty happy with this release. Like I said, the price point, I think it was like $17 when I bought it. You can probably find it on Amazon for like $14.99. So it's a really good buy for it. Studio Canal's done a really great job giving us this movie in 4K. Like I said, there are some improvements, a couple drawbacks, but those drawbacks, like I said, remain consistent to what was on the Blu-ray. And so I really can't complain. Overall, I would give this a 3.5, probably a 4 out of 5. Just because there is a good amount of special features, and it's a pretty awesome addition to my collection. So I'm happy to have it, and like I said, it's one of my favorites. So I'm stoked to see it in 4K and be able to have it on my shelves in 4K. So anyways, did you guys pick this up yet? What did you think of the release? Were you happy? Did you like what you've seen? Would you have liked to have gotten more out of it? Let's talk about it in the comments below, and if you like my channel, click subscribe, click the little bell. It'll notify you whenever I put up some new videos, and look forward to seeing more of me later on. Stay safe, mask up, social distance. Love you all, and peace.